Hello, 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 world. This is Shruti Pandey, and after hosting two amazing testers for a roundtable testing, I wanted actually this roundtable to be the first one with two amazing soul, beautiful humans that I know across the world from me, but still very close to my heart. I see great work being done by Tara. I see great work being done by Tristan, and these are amazing, amazing humans who have turned into independent consultants and freelancers and are rocking their respective fields in community building and marketing. So I wanted to host this roundtable community session where I asked these great folks about community with a tinge of marketing. But let's see how this goes, because roundtable are basically a small group debate where we give each other equal chance, opportunity, and right to express our views. So thank you so much, Tara, and thank you so much, Tristan, for giving me your time. I understand you guys have busy schedules and coordinating in 3 time zones. I understand. I understand that's a bigger issue. I think bigger issue than most countries uh, quarreling amongst each other. I am so happy we finally met.
I know, this is wonderful. I'm so excited.
Same here.
Happy to be here. Let's do this.
I've been waiting this entire week for this thing, Oh my God, it's so towards the end of the week, but literally I've been waiting for this. So, kicking off this conversation and roundtable community, I would like to ask you to a starter question, a very basic question, given your expertise, but for for the general advice and understanding of the audience, why do you think is there a need for marketing or community?
I'm gonna let Tara start.
I was going to let you go first.
You're welcome.
Well, I think we need each other, and we need to use each other as resources and build on each other. And I think community comes naturally. Marketing, I think, is not as natural, but when you get into, a capitalistic society and we all want to show off the things that we're working on, what's the best way to do that? That's so I think they're both very natural things, but I do think that we've kind of manufactured them into this really big thing that has become very buzzwordy and maybe a little bit misconstrued.
Oh, wow.
I do echo on the misconstrued. I think that it depends on what your end goals are, whether you're leading a product-led community, a community of practice, or from a marketing function too, right? Like, how are you hoping to serve your customers, users, and or constituents, right? And so I think about, for example, one of my clients who said, we really want to get our product in, Hacker Noon, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, well, are you going to pay to play? And they're like, no, we want it to come from the ground up. And I was like, okay, this is a great example. Marketing, right? We are collecting emails. We are getting people top of funnel with content. We are doing nurturing campaigns, the end goal to convert them with our sales, right? And get that deal signed. Community is about playing the long-term game, right? And so in that instance with that client, we could try and take the short term. We could throw some dollars. We could try and get a PR firm. We could talk about this new feature launch, right? Try and get into Hacker Noon. Or we can take their intended approach, which was to get people talking about them word of mouth. That one is going to take a lot longer. Why? Because it's about building a foundation of trust, and you can only do that if you have it on a foundation of time, right? That's why community investment doesn't happen overnight. When people do go-to-market strategies for marketing, a lot of times, y'all, they're buying lists from Zoom Info per, targeted persona. They're then using those and dripping them into their nurture campaign. People are opting out. Community is about starting smaller, building those small viable communities, as Rosie Sherry calls them, and really starting to expand them with goals in mind for your business, right? So it's a long-winded way of saying, I think that they both definitely need to exist, but it's going to depend on what your end goal is for your users. We're talking about products, and I only have experience in product-led communities. That's actually not true. I retract that statement. I've done alumni groups too. I retract. That's another story.
Wow, I love both the answers. I think it's my bias kicking in that I have for the both of you. And I think there's a clear distinction in the perspectives, right? I mean, whilst I see Tara answering with respect to the community perspective, and I loved the whole point of, the misconstrued view of marketing in there, versus I also loved the answer where Tristan says that it totally depends what kind of long-term, short-term game are you playing, or is it product-led, community-led, etc., etc. Wow, I think my vision of having you two is finally fulfilled, and I've like manifested. And I can't be more happier today. But moving on to my next question, which is kind of a hard, loaded one, but again, I have the two of you, so I don't have anything to fear. So moving on to the
No
second
pressure.
question, which is, do you think the term community is overused or exploited for marketing or sales purpose?
Tristan, you take that one first because I have some opinions.
Give it to them, Queen. Give it to them. Let them have it. Let them have it at this round table.
I do think marketing is overused in a sales and marketing, or community is overused in a sales and marketing kind of way, where it's not really understood that why do you want community is not really understood. It's just another buzzword that we throw out there. Like AI has become in the last few weeks. Everybody wants AI. Everybody wants community. But when you go about community correctly, I don't think it's overused. So if you really do care about your clients using your product or the people that you're trying to connect with, then it's not overused. It's just true. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. We need to preserve humans like you who actually care for community, because I think it's becoming extinct, right? So I think it makes total sense. Just gotten into deep thinking mode.
Well, what day of the week probably is. I think that I've always seen community as human-centered, holistic project management. And so whatever you are doing, I also see it as a lens, right? I come from nonprofits and social work. And so I took those values with me into tech, and I used my social justice lens to help fuel relationships that I, built with community leaders, because that is at the heart of what community is, right? Building trust, going back to trust. And when I had to, and I've always been marketing adjacent and or co-running marketing or some kind of function there. And so I do believe that in that same way, when I'm helping my clients, I'm taking my lens of community, trust, quick wins versus long-term gain, and relationships, right? And I'm taking that lens and I'm putting that through marketing, but you are going to have to compromise some of the things that you care the most about, right? So when you're asking the original question, is it, overused? I do think that community is overused because it's not a new industry. It's not. It is it's not a hard thing to measure either. The issue is that community, again, sits at the heart of your business, right? Marketing is always going to want to get more content. Sales is always going to want to get, customer reference calls. Product is going to get people to try beta. The list goes on, right? And so your job as a community leader is to understand the requirements from the C-suite and then pick your top tier internal customers, right? If you're leading a product-led community, you need to be focusing on product because that's what the customers care about. And you need to be focusing on customer success because no one knows the pain points of the customers better, right? And so those two things are super, super critical. The issue is you're always going to run into someone, into that CFO who's probably using a flip phone in Windows XP, God bless, and doesn't understand the value, right? So I think, yes, it is misconstrued. That said, I don't believe that. I think that it's willful ignorance on the C-suite. I think it's willful ignorance, right? They want to see a quick return of their investment, and there are quick wins that you can do from a community-led perspective. Call it community, call it marketing. It's about trust for me. right? There's a reason why a lot of people stop following marketers, right? Or marketers don't even post on social media, but a lot of people will trust, they'll trust community leaders more. And so as marketers, it's really important to find that balance between what is providing value for the business and what is providing value for your followers and or community members, etc. But I do think the two can go hand in hand. I think that you have to see what are you willing to give up in your own priorities. I'm not going to say values, but there are certain things that you do have to let go of a little bit if you are going to lead an effective and viable community in 2023.
True. And there's just so much overlap between the two that if you try to break them apart and silo them into two different things, I don't think you'll ever actually reach those goals.
You can't, right? Because marketing is the road and community is the vehicle, right? And so when you're thinking a lot about you need the fuel, I can't, as a community leader, get out there and host an event with the goal of evangelizing a new feature if I don't have someone, you know, on the creative team creating digital assets, if I don't have someone running our social media account, right? If I don't have someone who's purchasing the infrastructure for me to be able to host that, right? And not to say that that couldn't fall under a community, that's just not going to happen. Marketing has been around as a quote unquote, you know, industry for a lot longer. Sales is always going to be antagonistic to marketing, right? So why would you expect them to give us grace and community? It took decades and still, it's still a work in progress right now to build that trust between those two. So why would you expect everyone to just give open hands to community? I do think that community members, and this is a read, I don't like to talk to most community leaders. I find them overzealous, self-righteous, overusing emojis, fist pumps. And I just think my inner Daria is just like, no, thank you. I don't want to be a part of that. Let's get this stuff done. So I do think that part of community leaders today is they need to develop a little bit more of a thicker skin. They need to start really thinking about how they're tying their goals back to the, you know, to the C-suite, but also to remember that just like this is no longer a buyer's economy when it comes to jobs, we've seen a huge switch, right? In the industry going from make whatever you want to everyone cutting back. It's the same thing with community too. So community leaders were promised, you know, all of these opportunities, new tools were coming out, thanks capitalism. And then the whole industry quickly got wiped away. You know, you as community leaders need to be okay with moving on to a new relationship if you want to stay in the industry. I kind of see it like recruiters, right? Recruiting, you come, job requirements go up, you're busy, go busy, they hire more. The company isn't doing so well, they shrink. A lot of that can be said for community too, but you got to play the long run. But yes, it's overused.
This is the exact reason why I wanted to have a roundtable for community, because, you know, during the pandemic, we saw so many of communities coming up and it felt like, okay, we cared for each other. And suddenly, as the pandemic started to fade away, we saw the true colors of the community, people, companies, layoffs and everything. And I think we are already mid 2023. And I think if we don't start talking now about how crucial and hand in hand a community, a marketing, a product, a sales, even technology goes, then I think we have already missed the bus for the next year. So I can't tell you what amazingly, beautifully crisp and awesome answers that I've been getting, that this feels like not a content, but a content roundtable for me. And moving on to the final question that I have for you, which kind of is an important ball bearing in this vehicle and road that we are traveling on, which is how do really marketing and community help technology? Or you can change technology to a product, whatever you might feel is comfortable.
Come on, Tara.
Obviously. What was I thinking? So I really like the analogy that you used, Tristan, of the road and the vehicle. And I think that applies to tech too, if you kind of zoom out a little bit. If you make marketing and community the road that we're traveling, you know, your product is either the vehicle and that's what's taking you down that road. But you can also flip that around. I think I've seen a lot of technology come out of the need for people to have community and the need for a better marketing method, that we've developed that tech to build and fill that need. That's why we ended up with, monoliths like Twitter, because people wanted to just put their ideas out there. And sometimes they get so big that it's a common name, and sometimes they're these neat little things that your community goes, hey, have you ever used this? And then it just kind of accelerates that tech there too. So it's all intertangled to me.
Thanks, Lisa.
I think, yeah, no, and I really like that too. I think a lot about Gen Z. I think a lot about where we are going as an industry. And I think about in terms of purchasing usage and the kinds of values that companies are going to have to represent in their technology, that if they're providing that, right? And I think about Gen Z, per Business Insider, in the US alone, they had a $360 billion spending power, right? So Gen Z is also, and I know I'm making some generalizations here about a whole generation. Oops, happened to us too, I guess. But part of it is that you need to be meeting them in a different way. Gen Z doesn't necessarily like to read newsletters as much, right? So what are you doing to meet them in other areas? How are you meeting them where they're at, whether they're in an existing community, whether it's a social media platform, you name it. And so companies need to see too, and I do believe that's kind of part of how community had evolved, right? Is because, the C-suite investors, they were looking for different ways to meet the next generation who were going to be acquiring and using their products. And so when it comes to community, I don't see it going anywhere, Obvi. I think it's going to continue to evolve. It's going to get more savvy, just like any, heartbreak or global panini lockdown situation. It's going to need to take some time to get over that little slump and start back and evolve more. But I wanted to say to all of the, community builders out there is remember that community is, while there are some founded principles about building community programs, I do believe that it is a lens that you see making a positive impact, adopting new technologies and innovations. And so remember, you can take that with you anywhere, whether it's, becoming a content manager to help people understand what the technology is that they are hoping that they acquire, whether it is getting out there and maybe you're going to go into sales and communicate the value from an authentic way. Think about community as a lens. And for those that are in it for the long haul, remember that whenever a company tells you that they want community, they want an ambassador program. They want someone to run their social media, right? They want someone to run a forum, but they have no idea what those goals are. So maybe just start with what's the most pressing thing for the business that you think that you want to see more adoption in terms of the technology itself. What I would say also from a community perspective too is I would recommend that people start building more communities of practice, so that as your product roadmap will continue to shift and be shaped by your users, that you don't feel locked into a certain practice or principle. I would say lastly too, when it comes to a marketing perspective, and bless you to all of those marketers out there that got dumped with all these community programs and you don't know how to authentically lead and or engage with your constituents. Just remember that you just need to be in the community. You need to rebuild trust. There's a lot of companies right now that eliminate their community programs. It is not going to serve you in the long run because you've already damaged your customer trust. You gave them something, you gave them a service, and then you pulled it away. They're still probably going to apply and buy your products. And a lot of your community program work that you worked really hard to do is going to get acquired by other parts of your department, hypothetically. And they might work for a while. But if you are not continuing to maintain trust with your community members, you will lose them. Your technology, your software will become shelfware. No one's going to want it. So remember, y'all, that regardless of what role you're in, marketing community are always going to need to be together and they're going to need to work hand in hand. But community members need to continue to get more and more savvy about how it impacts the business. And marketers are going to need to continue to do a better job of creating authentic messaging tailored to the next generation, because that's what they expect.
And the only thing I would add to that is, when your C-suite is asking for community, they might mean one thing, but when your community is asking for community, they actually mean that. They want the webinars. They want the people to talk to that they can go to that have been using your product for years when they just started. So we have to listen to what they're asking for as well, and remember that it's not just a marketing strategy. It is actually something that people are asking for and want.
I think people have forgotten the essence of the word community, right? I mean, the whole essence lies right in there. Like community means a lot to the people. I mean, it may mean something to the C-suite, but it means totally different to people who use it, people who are a part of it. It's more like a tribe to them. If they have a problem, they can reach out to each other. If they have, it's like an access to a network which they feel so proud of. And
Exactly.
like I said at the beginning of this session, I wanted this one first because I think community marketing, whatever we call it, the different types and the different layers of, marketing, sales, and community, and all these strategies, the way they implement or get implemented in a company, product, technology, whatever. I think it's so important. And I see so many Gen Z in my country specifically wanting to become community builders, but there are more kids and very fewer communities. And like Tristan rightly mentioned, like you need to understand, do you really need to want a community or just manage a content page? I mean, there's a difference between the two. So I think this conversation is going to be so, so useful to so many youngsters in my country, at least. And it's going to help them give that perspective of community and marketing being the two sides of the same coin, probably, and how you're supposed to use them.
Exactly.
And just to all of those amazing rising leaders out there, you are not your job title. Your value is not determined by your work that you are doing every day, all the time, like outside of work. Like it's important to remember that you are not your title. So leading with your moral compass while becoming more and more business savvy is so important for you. But try one thing out and try another out too. I guess that's all I would say for your amazing rising leaders out there watching.
Oh yeah. If you want to start a community for something, do it.
Do it.
If you build it, they will come.
But play for the long term.
Yes. That is such a positivity on a Thursday evening at my end and Thursday morning for you guys. Any parting thoughts before I wrap up this roundtable, if at all?
Don't forget your value and your why. I think that's been really important for me. It's remembering why I'm in it and what value I'm bringing.
I think for me, I go back to Neil Gaiman. We owe it to each other to tell stories. And I think that whether you're in marketing and you're telling stories about how to best, adopt these technologies and along the way, and from a community perspective, celebrating the leaders out there, they're doing badass stuff with your technology. We owe it to each other to tell stories, whether it's a customer ambassador program, whether it is doing your first time on a stage. You owe it to others to tell your stories and your customer stories, your community member stories, and industry stories as well. So don't forget to keep on telling stories. That's all.
Amazing. So till we meet again and hear some more stories from the two of you. Thank you so much. So much.
Bye.